I also want to remind everyone that this public comment period is not intended for extended dialogue. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to the council at this time? Anybody? Okay. Council members, are there any council items to be considered? Okay. And council, I would accept a motion to approve the consent agenda. Councilmember Fox and Councilmember Liefeld. Any discussion, council? All those in favor say aye. 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 And those opposed, state by saying nay. That motion has prevailed. Tonight we have a resolution for our emergency operations plan, and for this item we have with us the City Administrator Dan Waticha.
Thank you. Hopefully this piece of technology works tonight. This was introduced last meeting. At that point, council asked to have an additional workshop and some additional training, and those are in process. Anticipate we will have a council workshop on October 18th. Depending on other schedules, it's possible that might move up, but that one's certainly confirmed if needing a definite date. Also, Dakota County Emergency Management is working on an elected officials training program, but at this time that's not scheduled, but anticipate it'll be later this year. So those pieces are in the works, and hope that council would be willing to act on the resolution tonight, since it's a bit more of a formality. There are changes in the current emergency operations plan from 2018, and although certainly not unsurmountable, it really would be best to have a current plan in place so that if there were some issue or question, we're working under the current plan instead of an outdated plan, or knowing that there's things that are outdated that we're ignoring. It has the possibility, not extremely likely, but it does have the possibility of playing into some grant eligibility. So really requesting that council would act on the resolution this evening and fully recognize that we will have additional training and workshop for council in the near future. And with that, I can stand for any questions.
Thank you, Dan. Council, any discussion? Okay, Councilmember Vaughn.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dan, do you know how many times have we enacted this plan in recent years? I mean, I have never seen us say, except for the pandemic, but I just don't know. I support moving forward knowing that we're working on it. I don't put a heighten it that I don't want to miss out on opportunities if we didn't approve it. So I get it that we're working forward. Councilmember Fulch had some concerns on it, but before the pandemic, I don't remember us ever using the emergency operation plan. So I bring that as an awareness. Is that something that, are we concerned that something might come up that we really got to have this? Or can it be delayed? Or what's our concern?
Really, it's, I don't want to belittle it by calling it housekeeping, but really it's a matter of having a current plan in place so that if an emergency were to occur, we're acting under a current plan rather than an amalgamation of a outdated plan and known changes. So it is largely a housekeeping formality, but I think it's a significant and important one. In terms of the specific question about number of times that we enacted it prior to COVID. I do not know that. I've not heard that it's been any numbers or that it's common, but I do not know that. We certainly did enact it with COVID this past year and a half. But in my 20-odd years, I have seen emergency plans, not here, enacted 2, maybe 3 times prior to COVID, so add it to a 4th. So they're not, hopefully they're not often, they're emergency situations, but they're situations nonetheless to be prepared for.
Councilmember Fulch.
Thank you. Often emergency operations plans are, at the core of it, they're thinking out scenarios in advance and practicing them so that when an emergency actually happens, so that it's a more natural response, who your partners are and chain of command and how communication and approvals are going to work and all of that. And so it's not like they would, toss aside the new plan and say, oh, heck, we can't do that because the council didn't, pass it, And so, so the thing that bothers me about it is just that in the resolution, it says, number 1, it says, now therefore be it resolved by the City Council in the City of Hastings, Minnesota, that the City of Hastings Emergency Operation Plan has been reviewed and that it's been updated and that the council approves it. And so I guess it just gives me heartburn whenever we have plans that are brought before us and we don't really actually get the opportunity to review them, and we're more of a rubber stamp. And that's how this makes me feel, is that, being on the council for 5 years, that we've never been given even, a brief, a 45-minute briefing as to, what is in the emergency operations plan. And so that's not your fault, and it's not anyone, else's, current fault, but it's just the way it has been, and that these approvals just have gone every 2 years. And as I had said, I had a lot of, it gave me a lot of inks to see that the mayor was the incident commander, within the chain of command structure. And so it gives me a lot of heartburn to approve something that we haven't had the opportunity to review and really understand. And then furthermore, then that does close the door. I just know how these things work, that if we go through the training then in October and we have any feedback, then I'll be like, okay, well, we'll remember that for 2 years from now when we go to update the EOP. And so, so I guess I've been around the block a few times now to know how these things work. And so I don't fully understand why it is that we couldn't wait until the council was actually, had reviewed it and had the opportunity to know what they're really approving in the end. So that's my 2 cents.
Councilmember Lund.
Just as a quick point of clarification, it would be a very remote likelihood, like infinitesimally small likelihood, that the mayor would actually be the incident commander. That's typically the first responding person on scene, which is going to most likely be police, fire, public works. They may be relieved as the supervisor comes in, but the mayor's role was not a great slide in the presentation last meeting, but under Minnesota statute, chapter 12, the mayor's role is the authority for declaring a local emergency, which then within 3 days, council would presumably confirm. That's why that was at the top of that org chart. It was not intended to be that the mayor would be the emergency manager or the incident commander. So just a quick point of clarification to that.
Because when I did ask that question, the response was yes, that the mayor would be the incident commander. So.
But I would be interacting with chief or deputy, so I'd be the deliverer. just making the statement, or, am I right, Dan?
Depending on what that particular statement is, the mayor's number one role would be in declaring the emergency, which the council would then presumably confirm. The mayor also would have a role with likely some sort of liaison-type role between the emergency management team, so your command staff and the CFLOP, as you pointed out last meeting, and the city council. The mayor also probably, although working with the public information officer, would probably have something of a public face to the public and the media. So there's certainly some roles there, some interaction with the command staff, the emergency manager, the incident commander, but not specifically in there calling the shots or coordinating. There certainly would be room for the mayor to give some input on, council's never going to go for that budget approval or whatever it might be, but it is not the coordinating role.
Councilmember Fulch.
Thank you, Dan, and I understand what you just said, but it just goes to further my point about how it hasn't been explained, it hasn't been reviewed, and so hence, I guess, it just goes to show exactly the point that I was trying to make. And as I had said previously, that when a real event does occur, that you're totally right, that either the fire chief, the police chief, or the public works director probably is going to assume incident command, depending on what it is. But it would be more ideal for the council to actually have things explained to them so that they are fully informed, as Mayor Hicks used to say, as to what it is that we're approving, rather than just giving it a rubber stamp, like, yeah, we'll get to it later, and move on. So I guess the rest of the council can take up a motion to approve the EAP as it is, and hope for the best later. But I personally, I'm going to be voting no, just because I'd like the opportunity to know exactly what it is that we're approving, and to have the ability to suggest changes if we so felt as, collectively that there was something that was needed in that, for instance, training requirements or something to that effect. So anyhow, that's it for now. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Fulch. Councilmember Lund.
Thank you, Ryder. Just, Councilmember Vaughn asked if it'd been used, and it'd been used in 2018 for the water issues, I believe. But are you suggesting that we table it, or what? If that's ultimately the better approach, is to table it so that we can have more time to review it, or instead of just not supporting it, is that something that is that ultimately what you're trying to do, is suggest that we need more time to review it and add to the clarity that maybe isn't there at this point? Or is that something that we can do afterwards in some sort of workshop with some training? I guess I'm just want to get a resolve to the comments that we've heard the past couple of meetings, so that everybody feels good about it, because I don't want to rubber stamp things either. But I think maybe what the concerns are might be able to be addressed in just some communication and education after the fact too. Like, just being up to speed on the whole thing. The what ifs, does that make sense?
Thank you, Councilmember Lund. Corey, our attorney, just stated that if it is passed tonight and we find that after our workshop and things need to be changed, we could make an amendment to some of those things, correct? If that helps. I think, Tina, we all see where you're coming from. Councilmember Fulch, we all see where you're coming from. But I think in Dan's thoughts are to get it passed so he can move on with his part of it, and if an emergency orders needs to be acted, then we have something on paper. Does that help?
Your Honor, I do thoroughly understand, and it does feel like it's just a checkbox at this point, where it's like, okay, so we're just gonna ask the council to approve a plan that we haven't, really educated them about, and just with the understanding that they're gonna approve it anyhow. I don't know, it just strikes me, I just hate to start the precedents, or continue the precedents, for lack of a better way to express it, because, like, for instance, Councilmember Lund was just, alluding to the fact about the water incident that happened a few years ago. Our emergency operations plan was not actually enacted. It was not invoked when that occurred. And so, as I had stated earlier, Chief Shute had actually made the decision not to start it. And so in that respect, it made me feel a little bit better that the mayor was being included if there was an event. But I guess what I would really like to understand better is, how does that decision-making actually occur? Like, when is it that the mayor or the council is actually brought in and consulted when there's an event that actually happens to trigger that decision-making tree, so that occurs, and that doesn't make the mayor an actual incident commander? It just makes you're just the authority that pulls the trigger, so to speak. And so, and I think that it's really important, as I had said in the previous meeting, for you to fully understand what your roles are, and not to be asking, in the middle of a council meeting, right, but as you're being asked to approve it, well, okay, well, what is my role? I guess I'm looking out for you, I guess that's what I'm trying to do, is that I think that it's a really important training piece, and that the council should also understand then what their role is. And I think many of us had already gone to the county training that had happened, but that was really so generic in nature. It was basically, it just said to the effect, okay, this is how government works, and this is how emergency management will work, and you, as an elected official, will stand on the sideline and wait to be tapped. Basically, that's the short summary of it. And so, so it would be, I think it's our role as elected officials to really understand how all of, that works, and I felt like when the water incident had happened, I thought that it was unfortunate that we weren't included more in the decision-making planning, because, for instance, I remember Councilmember Brox was awesome. She stood up and she contacted Cub and was able to get water, and so I think that there is a role for us to play also, because I think that in many respects, we're more in tune and networked with folks within the community who have resources readily available like that than necessarily staff would. And so, so that's where I'm coming from. I just think that there would be opportunities for improvement, for the council to be further utilized in events that occur like that. And so I guess that's why I'm really dragging my feet on it more than anything, is just that we have been excluded in the past from any of the decision-making. And so yeah, I think that at the last council meeting that we had discussed tabling it until we could have training. And so maybe it's just me being a worrywart, about it, and hoping, for the best. But, there's been too many times we've had conversations about having follow-up workshops and discussions, and they never happen. I mean, to be quite frank, and that's not just in the last year and a half, it's more of a longstanding, habit that happens, and we don't get that follow-up and chance to really engage. And so I just think that it's a really important function of elected officials, and that we should have an opportunity to be more a part of that decision-making process when, as it fits. I don't believe whatsoever that the mayor should under any circumstances be calling the shots, at the city level, because you're not trained to be able to do that. And so I'm not trying to say that at all, but just for there to be more, communications and the ability for us to work together in those kinds of situations. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Fulch. Councilmember Vaughn.
Your Honor, I'm going to make a motion that we move forward, because Councilmember Fultz, I respectfully disagree. I just don't think it's our role. I think the role, how I envision this and how I've seen it work, and I've heard of it work, but during like a storm, the mayor declares it, probably with support from the department heads, and then we get out of the way unless they need to come back and ask for some funding. Otherwise, the experts are in there. I'm not an expert in emergency operation. I don't want to be an expert. That's what we have department heads and people to do. So I think we need to move forward. The staff has asked us. They've given it to us. We had a chance to read this. I don't know why we would stop it. If we want to continue to have a discussion, sure, it's a good discussion to have. But today, staff's asking us to get this up to speed. If we need to make an adjustment, we have, it sounds like our attorney says we can. So be it. Let's move forward. And I would hope that the mayor just declares it, and they're probably going to bounce off a few people saying, I'm going to declare an emergency. Yeah, go get them. That's probably what you're going to get. If not, it still needs support from the council 3 days later. So I think it's set up to work the way it is. So with that, Your Honor, I make a motion that we approve the emergency operations plan.
Councilmember Vaughn. Councilmember Lund seconds. Any additional discussion or new discussion? All those in favor, state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, Councilmember Liefeld and Councilmember Fulch. All right, and that motion prevails. Tonight, under administration, we have the COVID-19 and Delta variant update. Dan?
There is not a specific recommendation or request of council. Really, it's a matter of recognizing that one of the prominent headlines over the last couple of weeks has been the Delta variant throughout the country, as well as Dakota County here. Over the last couple of weeks, Dakota County moved into the substantial category, and right now it is just short of the high category, but with that, the CDC recommends that anybody that is indoors would be masked. We have put in place for employees that when they're in the workplace to be masked. Certainly some exceptions with being in a large meeting room with a fairly small group and being able to social distance. There's not a CDC exception, but following protocols from the expired governor's executive orders, there were exceptions for legislative bodies to be able to meet so you can have ongoing discussions like we are now. But a matter of, that's as far as, without an emergency declaration, that's as far as I can really call the shots is city employees. If the council had any thoughts of other, or even just wanted to get ideas out there and off their chest or have a chance to discuss, here's a chance to talk about it, because absent a special meeting, we're not getting together again for 3 weeks. So just trying to have that opportunity for some dialogue and hear what council's thoughts might be, what we're looking at or going forward.
Thank you,
With
Dan.
that,
Council? Any comments, discussion? Councilmember Liefeld.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just have one question, Dan. I'm not sure if this is the time to ask or not. If we'll be putting back up our plexiglass for our meetings, and will that be in place in time for our next meeting?
at this point, was not planning on it, but we certainly, particularly if that's the direction council would like to go, we can certainly add that. I would believe that we could certainly take care of it within 3 weeks for the next council meeting. There might be other meetings before then, you know, other committees in here that we can't get ahead of them, but it's certainly something that could be added.
Unless somebody has a strong opinion otherwise to not put them up, I would like to make the recommendation that we do that. Even for those of us who are vaccinated, we can still get the Delta variant and we can still pass it on to other people. So in an effort to not do that, I would really like to see, because this is pretty close proximity to each other. I work all day with people, but I'm in and out, near you, I'm away from you, I'm moving around. This is the longest at any point I've sat with anybody outside of my family, unless I was getting my hair cut, so. Unless somebody has a reason not to. I don't know if you need more than that to do that. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it.
Councilmember Liefeld? Comments? Councilmember Fulch?
Thank you, Mayor. I think it makes a lot of sense to follow the lead of the county, of Dakota County in the mask mandate, just for consistency purposes, so that the city and the county, particularly considering the county presence here in Hastings, where I think if they're not the largest employer, I think they are, yeah, for sure, one of the biggest. And so for consistency purposes for the public, that we're mirroring their steps. So in the memo that we were provided, it says on Monday, August 9th, Dakota County was requiring employees to wear masks, and on Wednesday, August 11th, extended the requirement to visitors in county buildings until the incident rate drops below substantial. And so I don't know if everyone has seen it, that there's now, the way that public health is doing it is that there's 4 levels. And so so of the 4 categories, high is the highest, and then substantial is the second to the highest. And I can't remember what the third, moderate, and then low, right? And then it's based on the percentage of people who are testing positive when they actually take a COVID test. And so I think it's, don't quote me, but I want to say it's like if it gets to 5% of folks who are taking the COVID test, then that's considered high. And so Dan had put in in here that, I think you said Washington County is already requiring, you had Washington County is requiring employees and visitors to wear masks when in county buildings, and then so Dakota County is, I know the city of Red Wing is requiring all visitors in public buildings to also be wearing masks. And so I think that it makes sense for consistency purposes to follow suit as the counties are for the public. And I think that we also have, an obligation to our employees to ensure that they have a safe work environment, and so that they feel comfortable themselves being, in the office. I already had a coworker, she came to work, and she was telling us she was getting married this last weekend, and her fiance had a serious exposure, and so and she had a little scratchy throat, and so they both decided to go in because they were getting married within 2 weeks. And he was fine, and she had COVID, and she's like 27 years old, fully vaccinated, but she's a server on the side, and she came down with COVID, and she didn't get like seriously ill where she needed to be hospitalized or anything like that, but she was knocked down hard right before her wedding, and poor thing. So anyhow, I've seen it happen, and the scare go through then the office about, okay, we've all been exposed, we're all using the same ladies' room, and we were talking in the lunchroom and things of that nature, and then the whole process that had to then go into place about people having to go get tested, and folks trying to work at home again until things clear up. And so I just think that there's the situation where we could be going on that roller coaster again. And so I just think that we should do what we can to, protect our employees from those kinds of exposures. So that's it.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Councilmember Fulch. Any other discussion, council? Any other discussion putting up the plexiglass? Yes? I'm seeing head. Okay. I think we're all right. We all want to be safe for each other and our staff, so. Got a couple weeks. Okay. No additional? Okay. Thanks, council. So tonight we'll be going into a closed meeting pursuant to Minnesota statute 13D.05 subdivision 3 to discuss the performance evaluation of the city administrator. First, does council have any announcements? I have a few. Well, first of all, as he did not want us to mention, it is Trevor Lund's birthday today. So of course we're gonna mention it. Also coming up, we have Makers Alleyway Market, which will showcase area markets and artisans on the next 3 Thursdays in the alley between Second Street and Levy Park. Music in the Park also occurs each Thursday evening. This Thursday, August 19th, we have a kickoff for the Mural Project, and an opportunity to see the artist Daniela Biancaccini at work. And a mural celebrating Hastings history and diversity will be located at the rear wall of the Hastings Family Service facing Levy Park. City offices will be closed on Monday, September 6th in observance of Labor Day. Sunday programs at Levy Park. Wednesday, August 18th is Story Time in the Park. The theme is food in partnership with Pleasant Hill Library. Thursday, August 19th is Music in the Park with Chararanga Tropical, supported by Ruth and George Doffing Charitable Foundation. Tuesday, August 24th, the Performance in the Park with Katha Dance, sponsored by Smead Manufacturing Company and the Metropolitan Regional Arts Council. Wednesday, August 25th is Story Time in the Park. The theme is Rhythm, in partnership with Pleasant Hill Library. Thursday, August 26th is Music in the Park with the Minneapolis Commodores, supported by Ruth and George Doffing Charitable Foundation. Friday, August 27th is Movie in the Park, and the movie is Onward, sponsored by Ardent Mills. Thursday, September 2nd is Music in the Park with the Southern Express, supported by Ruth and George Doffing Charitable Foundation. Friday through Monday, September 3rd through the 6th, is Story Walk Along the Trail from Levy Park to J.C. Park. Meetings coming forward are Tuesday, August 17th, there's a Finance Committee meeting at 12:30. Monday, August 23rd, for the Planning Commission is 7 p.m. Thursday, August 26th, is the Charter Commission at 6 p.m. Tuesday, September 7th, is 5:30 City Workshop, and that will be discussing our budget, and 7 p.m. City Council regular meeting. The council had a closed-door session on August 2nd to discuss the process for performance evaluation of the city administrator. To complete this process, council will be going into a closed-door session this evening to continue performance evaluation of the city administrator, pursuant to 13D.05 subdivision 3A. With that, we will be moving into a closed-door session, and may I have a motion to approve? Councilmember Liefeld and Councilmember Vaughn, second. No additional discussion, and all those in favor state by saying aye.